LaMelo Ball has a great game, another one against Milwaukee, and records a record-breaking triple-double. Plus, we'll talk about the Rising Stars Challenge. How many Hornets made it? We'll discuss all of that today on Locked On Hornets.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. By the way, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 and free bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. If you're watching on YouTube, you see, what is it this time? Your name, the footwear phenom. We've had the Pharaoh of foot candy. We've had the Sultan of sneakers, and now we have the footwear phenom. It's Mr. David Walker joining us today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. The alliteration game, it just never disappoints me. I don't see these beforehand. Walker, clearly you don't either. These are all from the mind of Doug Branson. And
yeah,
so
Doug,
God bless that man.
Yeah, God bless that man indeed. I often leave the show thinking that very thing. God bless that man, Doug Branson, helping us out here. And by the way, you can check his his Substack. I've done that again. Substack, Every Hornets Boxscore, at everyhornetsboxscore.com. Let's get to this game, David. Milwaukee is always an interesting one because the Hornets just kind of have their number. I mean, we've seen it the last, couple of seasons. LaMelo came into yesterday's game averaging over 25 points per contest, over 7 assists. He did so on very nice shooting, close to 50 overall from the field, and I think 47% from three. Not only that, but we've seen the narrative type of stuff with LaMelo. Can you be the guy to take the last shot? Well, he did in one game where he hits the running left floater, one of the more memorable shots, at least for me, in LaMelo's young career. Well, even with a loss yesterday, they had Chris Middleton back in the lineup, bench player, but still great production from him going to the line. I believe going 8 of 8 from the free throw line for Middleton. But even with a loss, LaMelo scores 27 points. He dishes out 11 assists. And he gets 10 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, by the way. And the assist number is what came later in this game, but he was able to get 2 actually within the last, 3-4 minutes or so. But it's a record-breaking triple-double. The guy's 21 years old, and now he has the most triple-doubles in franchise history. You know, David, it's just like this first segment is something we can just do to take a moment and realize, you know what, this season has not been good. It's been pretty poor in a bunch of different ways that you want to measure it. But LaMelo is still an awesome centerpiece to have. And it goes to show just how much more important it is to try to put the right pieces around him.
Yeah, and on that point, having guys healthy, right? I mean, getting a healthy Hayward in there, getting some help for LaMelo out there. But you're right. I mean, and this is what his fourth game back, I think, from the most recent injury. And so he usually clicks back in around that third or fourth game. And for whatever reason, you're right, he's really performed well against the Bucks. He was feeling it last night early on. I mean, accounted for, I think, 90 some odd percent of the team's first quarter points, either scoring or assists. So was really feeling himself, really on a roll. Not getting much help when he gets hit in the head by superstars like Giannis Antetokounmpo. But didn't go all LeBron James full prayer in the middle of the lane either to try and get that call.
He didn't lose his mind.
Yeah, but that will come. But just talking about LaMelo and how special he is. I mean, to have the franchise mark for triple doubles is huge. I mean, 21 years old, being out there doing that stuff, and the shots coming. He's really become a marksman out there from the outside, but his ability to distribute as well. You mentioned the assists, not an easy assist to get on that double, on that 10th one from Jalen McDaniels, a nice finish from him. But really, you can see him, and against one of the better teams in the league, we know, being able to control the flow of the game and push it when he needs to, and really impact the game on 3 different levels. So, I mean, yeah, that's what you want right now. I think that's what we want from the Hornets. We want entertainment. We want good stuff from LaMelo. We want a fun game. We want to close, but I don't know if we want to stack up too many more wins. So, I mean, that's where we are.
Yeah, but it's funny because you watch the game and then a Hornet player makes a nice play, and then instinctually you say, yeah, awesome, great, and then you just don't want it to be a win at the end of the game. Now, look, and I saw, you see people talk about this all the time, right? Like how to actually feel in this situation if you're a Hornets fan. And it's totally fine to pull for a win. That's absolutely okay. It's actually good to not absolutely have your confidence destroyed here. I mean, if you're a young team, if you have so many young players that are going to be the foundation going forward, and nobody knows exactly how many players they're going to keep, the trade deadline, this go around, this offseason. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the Hornets' future. But the young players you do keep, you do want them to have some semblance of winning in their system, right? A part of their DNA. And they don't have that, but they also don't have the, all right, well, we'll just lay down. And this is a team where we can't win with all of the injuries. We can't win because our roster is not the expected roster that we had at the beginning of the year, at the middle portion of the year, whatever. This team doesn't lay down. And so I think there's some value in that. And watching LaMelo come in and just try to lead this team as much as he can. Like, David, he had 26 shot attempts in this game. So he posted one game where he had 27 field goal attempts, but 26 he's posted a few times, and it's the second most that he's had, but it ties with like 3 or 4 other games. He was looking for a shot. The shooting percentage was down under 40, and then it was at 33 from 3 in this one, but still hunting his shot and still having an impact in a lot of different areas. So LaMelo being aggressive is fun.
Yeah, and look at the rest of the backcourt. I mean, specifically, Terry did not have his best game out there, right? Just couldn't seem to buy a bucket for a large portion of the night. So, that probably clicked something in LaMelo in that he had to provide a little more scoring. And they mentioned during the game, I think Ashley mentioned during the game, LaMelo, you'll see when he misses a couple, he doesn't stop shooting, right? He always thinks that the next one is the one that's going to get him back on track. I mean, and usually, or actually, I'll say this, I always want to see that at this point. I want LaMelo basically to go for a triple-double every night. I think that should be his goal for the second half of the season. Go for triple-doubles, push that record out. But yeah, keep shooting, keep going for that dagger, keep going for the open shots when they're there. The one thing I would like to see him and really the team as a whole really, be more cognizant of. You think back to that Atlanta game, they were trying to either extend the lead or hold the lead. And there was a couple of possessions where they just kept jacking 3. LaMelo was in there too. Every open 3 went up. And I'm like, fellas, just go to the basket. Just try and get a layup. Try and get a dunk. That's how you protect that lead. That's how you can push that lead out when you want to get a game. I'm sorry, it wasn't Atlanta. It was just the most recent Miami game. And that's a game you do want to win. Okay, you lose all the rest. You beat the Heat when you can. So that's an area where I think that'll come. You forget how young LaMelo is. I mean, I know we talk about him every day. He's a highlight of every game he's playing in. But being that young, having no college experience, getting fantastic coaching for probably the first time in his career here in the NBA, you see the growth that's coming. And you see, Walker, there is growth to be had. There's still areas of improvement, running that point guard position, being able to close out a game, being able to control it from all angles. There's still growth, and he's got that mastery. And in his back pocket, he's probably the best passer on the planet. I mean, really, if you think about it, at least in the top 5. You put that all together. And from a LaMelo standpoint, there's still so much room to grow and improve. So I think you got to feel good about that.
Oh, yeah. And just last thing, since December, here we are talking about the shooting. It's definitely down as far as the efficiency goes. I mean, he's hunting his shot quite a bit. We talk about 26 field goal attempts. 27 is the most that he's had this year. But if you look at what he's done since Christmas, he's played 16 games. And his free throw attempts per contest is at 4.4. For his career, it's about 1 free throw attempt below that on average. So you've seen a growth. And even this season, it's like 3.5 or something like that. But the last 15 games, I think he's made more of an effort to get to the foul line. There's quite a bit of 4 and 5 attempt games in this 16 game stretch. You have the back-to-back games against Toronto, and then the first one against Boston, where he shot 9 from the charity stripe, and then the next game goes 8 of 8. You also have the 9 of 10 against Chicago. Man, to see 3 games where he gets to the foul line and shoots 8 free throw attempts within the last 10 that they've played overall, you're seeing it start to click for LaMelo. But the question is can he continue, or can he, period, get more of those calls? Let's talk about that. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
What's it going to take? Is it going to take Giannis destroying him and swiping him across the face? No, that's not it. All right, we'll try to ask him questions as to how LaMelo can get more foul calls when it is called upon to do so. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, it's the only app that you need at your Super Bowl party. It is FanDuel, and it's America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. And you can download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's talk more LaMelo coming up next. Locked On Hornets
is Locked On Hornets.
This says the Hornets received 3 votes for their handling of James Borrego, who was viewed as doing a good job the past couple of years before Charlotte fired him after the season. Then hire him. No one's hired him. These GMs are like, oh, we love James Borrego. Oh, you going to hire him? I don't think so. He got blown out twice in playing. You can't hire that guy.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, David. So we saw this game, and there was nothing more egregious as far as a no call goes than when LaMelo hits the layup, should have had the opportunity to go to the foul line for an and one, and there's just no call. And so this has been something people have been frustrated with for quite a bit, right? Because not only do you have LaMelo not getting calls himself, he's also fouling a lot on the other end. And so it's the worst problem you could possibly have as a star. The fact that you have this fouling problem and the fact that you're not getting any foul calls when you do drive to the basket. So look, one is a large part his fault. The other one, not so much, right? Like, I think one thing that is going to have to happen is this is a little bit new to LaMelo's game. You know, this is something that was, they put an emphasis at the beginning of the season. They talked about that constantly. Rod Boone is writing articles about it. Steve Clifford is sure to mention it right at the beginning of the season. He needs to go to the foul line more often. Well, he gets hurt. He doesn't play forever. What does he do when he comes back? I mean, he just lets it fly from deep all the time. I don't know if it still holds true, but for a while, it might even still be true. He was shooting the second most three-point field goal attempt in all of the NBA, and the only person he was behind was Steph Curry. So the fact that he was shooting so much, you're not going to get any foul calls from out there. But now that he's starting to be a little more aggressive, he's starting to get into the paint. I hope that officials are recognizing that. I hope that honestly, the swipe across LaMelo's face honestly puts it into the mind of the officials like, oh, okay, yeah, that was bad. There's no denying that. Let's pay attention to that a little bit more. And LaMelo forces them to call it in the future.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple things, right? I think just right off the bat, you watch that play, it's egregious. I mean, not a comment. It probably should have been a flagrant one. If you're going by the letter of the law, right? I mean, I think if you hit somebody in the head, it's a foul. And then if you review it or whatever, it's a flagrant one. It should have been a foul. It's clearly a strike to the head. Yes, it's Giannis. It's not hard to see. He's got the longest arms in the building. So you should be able to clearly see when the man driving to the basket gets swiped across the forehead. So stuff like that is going to just infuriate people on its own. I don't think there's an excuse or a way to talk yourself out of that one being called. But your point about LaMelo just now implementing the driving part of his game is correct. Like, you know, for so many years or his entire time in the league, he hasn't been going through contact, you know, driving to the lane and forcefully seeking out that contact and trying to finish. Not to say he hasn't been fouled, but like that hasn't been an element to his game. And he's tried to, you know, contort and make a bunch of crazy layups, and he's had success here and there doing that. But you're right, the refs aren't really used to seeing him go in there and try and get that contact, which it feels like he is hunting that a little bit more, or at least becoming more comfortable doing that. So that's an adjustment. Look, I think LaMelo's relationship with the refs is an interesting one, because at one point last night, LaMelo stepped off the line at a free throw. You could hear him on camera counting out the 6 players from the Bucks that were on the floor. And then I think he pointed to a ref and mimicked doing a whistle, so they don't like that. I don't know much about the refs, but I know they don't like being called out like that. It was in a joking way. LaMelo's a people person. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think there is some getting used to, especially a young star in the league, getting those calls, figuring out his personality. But there's no question he's got to get calls like that. I think that will come. And I'll say this. At some point, I think the Hornets, the team, the bench, someone's got to be like, hey, our guy's getting knocked out. He's getting hit across the head. He's already been injured, 3 times this season. Can we protect the guys? Can we protect people that are getting knocked in the face as they drive to the basket? So, like, a lot of that stuff, maybe it's to come in the second half. But it feels like LaMelo should be getting a lot more calls than he is. I will say this, though. I think he's made a concerted effort to pull back his fouls, right? The stupid ones you're not seeing as much. He's not fouling out as much. His defense, look, has to go under a major overhaul. He's got to get better on the defensive end, but he's trying not to get those silly fouls, at 3/4 court, grabbing in, doing something stupid where it doesn't affect the play at all. So that's good. But LaMelo's relationship with the refs and his ability to keep being aggressive, I think, should only get better.
Yeah, and it's not like LaMelo shows up the officials all the time.
No. Yeah,
right. Like, so you would think that there's not any kind of bad blood between those two. I don't ever see LaMelo show up constantly. There's nothing like that at all coming from LaMelo Ball. And so hopefully that relationship does get a lot better, in the sense that the officials just realize LaMelo is getting more aggressive, and they do give him the deserved calls, not just give it to him because, all right, well, he's a star and more likely than not, he's getting fouled here. I mean, no, it's actual foul if you want to check some of this stuff out. So hopefully that does happen. And I think that aggression will eventually pay off, at least with this newfound way of playing. Right. And even here in this game, he had 6 free throw attempts, so there was 1 technical. So I guess that doesn't necessarily count towards LaMelo being aggressive, but still 5, that's still decent enough. You'll take that. Yeah, man. LaMelo, special game, not just the shooting efficiency wasn't great, but not only to be more aggressive, not only to see the triple double. How about 3 blocks for LaMelo too?
Yeah.
I even think just crashing the boards. I mean, he was huge. We did the post game show for WFNZ last night, and one of the plays that we chose was just a putback from LaMelo. We had a couple of them early on. He's tapping that at the goal where he's trying to just keep the ball alive. That's how he had 5 offensive rebounds and then also 3 blocks. That if you have that size, right? If you're 6'7" and you find yourself down in the paint, then you can have an impact still. So that's something that I think LaMelo is starting to figure out. And of course, as he puts on more muscle, as he just becomes an adult, which you're seeing in the NBA, it's only going to help his game. Yeah.
And I think that block, one of those blocks you mentioned, led to that technical foul. So you know what? I am going to give him credit for that free throw. He earned that. He earned that free throw.
He did.
So yeah, but to your point on the refs, like, you always see him talking to the refs, but not in a disrespectful way. It's always like, tell me more about that foul you just
Mr. Ref.
me. Or yeah, Mr. Ref. So, like, I think they do appreciate that. I think it's coming. You're right. I don't see any animosity towards him. He's oftentimes such a smooth and at the same time kind of herky jerky player. So a lot of times maybe it's tough for them to see that right away, but they got to get the headshots. They got to get the headshots called.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And by the way, you mentioned you just forget how young he is. It's funny because I know he's 21. I get that, but then you hear something from Eric Collins on the call last night, and he says, former rookie of the year, also participated in the Rising Star Challenge, former All-Star. It's like, wait, you're talking about him like he is a longtime vet,
right?
Like a former All-Star. It is, and to do all of that at 21, you're just hoping a better team is around him so he could start to get a little bit more respect, because he had it immediately upon stepping into the league. He got it in droves, and then the Hornets were ascending, and now they're very much not. So we'll see what happens with the Hornets at the trade deadline. We can get your takes on that. Plus, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
The Rising Stars Challenge is here. We have the players that are going to be attending it. How many Charlotte Hornets are in the Rising Stars Challenge? We'll get to that in just a moment. But now, before I talk about Built Bar, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And if you're looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all of the fat and the calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We've been talking about it for quite some time now. We just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat just a little bit healthier this year. And if you're like me and you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then Built Bar is absolutely the treat for you. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They have amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, coconut, almond. I'm not sure how they do it, but they're low in calories, they're low in fat, they're low in sugar, but they are high in fiber and they are high in protein. Plus, you can go to your nearest Walmart today. You can walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, doesn't matter. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, you can run in there and grab a 13-bar box with the hit flavors, all of the ones that I just talked about. Go to Walmart, go to Sam's Club, go to Built.com. Plenty of places you can get Built Bars. They are fabulous. All right, one more segment to go. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
I got a couple of rookies here. I got David spreading fake news.
Guess what? 4 championship games in a row. Continued success, sustainability.
I've got Steve Bob not plugging in his headphones.
Which I would love to see JaVale McGee, get out there on the ice velodrome or whatever you call those things.
This is a professional show we're trying to run here.
Only on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, David, we all know the NBA trade deadline is fast approaching. We've gotten your takes before, but now with us being in the month of February, with it being on the 9th, so just over a week away, Terry Rozier's playing a lot better. Now, he wasn't great last night. He started to heat up a little bit as the game went on. But Mason Plumlee has been absolutely balling. So is Terry. These guys are starting to maximize on their value right now. What do you make of those two specifically? And is Gordon, who not only did he go 7 of 7 the previous game,
looked
but
aggressive.
Started off 5 of 5 in this one. Can he just stay healthy for 8 more days? Can you just stay healthy for 8 more days, put together over 50% shooting nights and average, let's go 20. Can you average 20 for a stretch, enough for another team to say, okay, all right, I'm in, baby. Bring Gordon Hayward on board. Which one of these players do you think is most likely to get traded, most likely to stay? Who do you hope stays on this team? Just give me your trade deadline thoughts.
Well, I mean, the obvious one, I think, is Plumlee, right? I mean, he's never been more tradable. I mean, the guy is the darling of NBA Twitter right now. They're saying he's better than Ben Simmons out there on Twitter land. Shout out Trey Kirby. And statistically, it's not even close. So I think that one is the one you look at, and you couple that with just, the Hornets wanted to kind of get the young guys going, play that center position some more, and start to move on. That one makes the most sense. It would be so bittersweet now that Plumlee has just warmed all of our hearts. I'm a Plumlee convert now. He will. If he were to get traded, he would go down with Josh McRoberts and former legends that have just shown out, and been able to go on to greener pastures, let's say. So I think that one is the obvious one if they can swing that. I don't know. Where did you guys land on the first round pick for Plumlee? I didn't get to that episode this week. I mean, it sounds crazy, but you look at the numbers and maybe not.
I still think. Right. If I had to bet money on it, I don't think it happens. Right. So. I mean, look, at the end of the day, even if he's playing so much better than he has, this month has been stupid for him, what he's done. The guy's still on a rental. How much are you going to pay him after this? You're going to do that for a backup center. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a team that says we are a Mason Plumlee away from contending. Right. So I don't think the first round pick is going to happen, but unprotected seconds, some young reclamation project in a second. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, you're right. The value is as high as it's been for him.
Yeah, and we love second round picks around here.
Love them.
We can't get enough. Terry is also one that's really interesting to me because I think in years past, it really seems like he would be the ideal guy for a team in contention to give them another shot in the arm on offense. Whether it's off the bench or in a third scoring role or something like that. Like he's that guy. I mean, that's really something you could add to your roster and immediately have an impact on offense. Who could make and has made a difference in big time playoff games, in his career. He has been that guy in the past. So he's the one of course, the money is the main sticking point there. Obviously it's a lot, but like for someone looking to make a push, I think he makes sense. Of course, he's got his shortcomings. Anytime you start talking about packaging with these picks, though, it just gets so much more complicated. You know what I mean? Like if you're packaging one or two players and then, God forbid, you bring in a third team on one of these deals, it just lowers the percentage of it happening to me. But those would be the two guys. I think with Oubre hurt, it's going to be super tough, for anyone to take a swing on him. That would have been another option. Could it be somewhere out of some guy that we're not thinking about out of nowhere? Sure. But to me, those seem like the three obvious ones, especially with Plumlee getting so much love right now.
Well, and you're in Doug's boy, Jalen McDaniels is the one that is most pursued.
Yikes.
So
I know.
Bad stretch for him. Now, what's funny? Last night, he actually, you don't want to say broke out of the slump because he definitely didn't, but made more threes, did hit the 3-pointer at the end of the first half, but it was not a good game for Jalen. He's not been shooting the ball well at all. He had a great game against Boston. And then since then, the shooting has gone down. So that's the thing about Jalen. 15 points on his birthday, but made some mistakes in this one.
Yeah, and I don't know. You really have to watch these games to see some of the shortcomings in Jalen's game or some of just the mishaps because he is enticing. If you see him out there, he's got the length. It's understandable why teams are looking to add him. So that's another possibility. Yeah, that seems like an easier one to make happen too. But certainly, he's had some ups and downs as of late.
Yeah, I mean, and so, if those guys get traded, any of them, you're going to have young players step up. Problem is, you don't have any of them in the Rising Stars Challenge, David. So it depends on how high you are on some of these younger players. So the player pool came out, and among the players that are in for the sophomores, you're talking about Jose Alvarado, Scotty Barnes, the rookie of the year last year, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Alperen Şengün, Franz Wagner. There's a lot of those guys. And then some of the rookies that are in that might be of interest to Hornets fans. Jalen Duren is in there. Walker Kessler is in there. AJ Griffin made it as well.
Yes.
Andrew Nembhard for Indiana, which is, somebody that was drafted in the second round. Very impressive there. Jalen Williams from Oklahoma City, I think taken the pick before or 2 picks before the Charlotte Hornets were selecting as well. But no Mark Williams, no Kai Jones, no James Bouknight, no JT Thor, no Bryce McGowens. What do you make of no Hornets being selected for the Rising Stars Challenge?
Well, unfortunately, I think you can skip over that sophomore class. There just hasn't been enough impact on the court for the Hornets. Their 2 first-round draft picks in Bouknight and Kai Jones just have not made impact here enough to play. So they're certainly not going to get a look on the larger stage league-wide. I think the Mark Williams thing is he's only played, counting last night, 21 games. And so that's his downfall there. He just hasn't had enough time on the court. And is just now starting to come on. And I think people are seeing that, calling for him to play more, which he is, but just hasn't enough time. I wouldn't feel too bad about that one if I'm the Hornets or Hornets fan or Mark Williams. You know what I mean? Like his numbers are really right there, kind of with Kessler and some of the other guys that have made it. But Kessler's played twice as many games. So is Jalen Duren. That one stings, of course, because the Hornets drafted Duren. So that's a tough one for Hornets fans to swallow. But overall, it would have been really tough for Mark Williams to get in right now. I think just with 20 games.
Yeah. So the sophomore class, you're right. You got to skip right on over that. There's just not a case. James Bouknight is the one. If you're just talking about this selection process and the Rising Stars Challenge to criticize the Hornets as much as possible, James Bouknight is the one that would give you the best evidence. Kai Jones was always going to be a project, and you could still find ways to criticize the Hornets for it. I'm just saying Kai Jones always going to be a project.
Right.
JT Thor, second round pick.
Right.
Okay. Book Knight's the one that kind of hurts here. With Mark Williams, you're right. I mean, they just didn't play him. I guess you could argue the Hornets could have played him earlier. I thought they should have played him a little earlier, but it's not anything that I'm like angry at Steve Clifford at. This was the system. He comes in, he plays well immediately, totally fine. He's going to get rookie experience. I'm cool with all of it. Mark Williams compared to Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler. If you look at the amount of games that Mark Williams has played compared to those two other centers, it's way down. But as far as the impact and what they've provided, is there any one of those centers that have just so vastly outperformed the other one, right? Like Kessler's been very good, and I was way wrong on him. I didn't want him in the NBA draft. I know he was like one of 15 guys that Doug Branson liked.
I just heard Doug screaming from Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, he wanted Jalen Duren, and then, Rick Bonnell, he would always clown Doug. Hey, which one of the 7 draft roses did you give? Which one of these? But Walker Kessler was a guy that Doug liked and would have fit a need for this team. And he's been great in Utah. 2 blocks per game, 71% from the field. It's outrageous. But I watch Mark Williams. You see Walker Kessler, he's also not shooting well from the free throw line at all. It's like 53%. Mark Williams, clearly a way better shooting touch than Walker. So he projects well in that area. I think you just saw a really talented pool of centers in this class. And you know what, David? I think the Charlotte Hornets got one. And I don't think him not being in the Rising Stars Challenge is an indictment on his play this season.
No.
It just didn't start early enough.
No, not at all. And I think the Duren case is he just played a lot more, had some early success, and I guess had a massive numbers that was tough to turn down. You got to remember the All-Star game is in Utah. Kessler does play for Utah. He had a little pop maybe 2 weeks ago or so where he was starting a couple games and got some national attention, I think, from those performances. He's played well. But yeah, I mean, Mark Williams is not going to have the eye-popping numbers. I don't think that sometimes Kessler had. Did he have? He didn't have like a 20-20, did he? Or he had. He
did have a ridiculous game here lately. I can look it up though.
Yeah, so he had something that popped out on NBA Twitter one night. But, Mark Williams has been a little bit more under the radar, just hasn't played as much as we mentioned. So, yeah, I think you're feeling great about Mark Williams right now. I think across the board, Hornets folks, there were a lot of doubters, that didn't like the Mark Williams coming in, a lot of concerns about him being able to move in the NBA and affect the game. I think it's clear he's been able to affect the game on offense and defense. I mean, I think that's what you have to be excited about.
Oh, yeah.
From the Mark Williams standpoint, it looks like a guy that can contribute and be a piece of this team. And that is what you desperately need and want from Hornets draft picks at this point. I think he's on track to be in that game next year. And you know what? These games aren't for centers. So don't even sweat it.
Especially like the Williams and Kessler types, right? Like Duren, maybe because he's just lightning in a bottle too at that spot. So maybe Duren a little bit more.
Yeah, he might be able to get some.
But it's like putting Rudy Gobert in the All-Star game. Like nobody wants to see him.
Now, will Kessler shoot a 3? I guarantee he's shooting a 3 in this game.
Oh, his dad's
attempted one. Yeah. Hasn't attempted one yet in the NBA. That was a big sticking point in college. Wanted to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. So there's one going up in Utah. My last thing on the Utah All-Star, I think we've got to hold out. I don't think LaMelo, would he get an invite to the 3-point contest? Probably not. Do they still have the skills? I should know this. Do they still have the skills challenge? I think they do.
Maybe.
I think they do.
I'll look that up. Research team working overtime right now.
That should be the NBA needs to find a way. Who else do you want in the skills challenge outside of LaMelo? I mean, plays with such flair. He did a windmill bounce pass last night. I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So I think that's the guy you want in the skills challenge, NBA. Come on, open your eyes.
Absolutely. Yes. Saturday, February 18th, 8 o'clock. It is the first event. The first event. The skills challenge is still up and running, baby.
Let's start it right now, guys. Today, hashtag it out. LaMelo Skills, hashtag LaMelo Skills Utah. Come on, let's get him in. Let's get him in there.
All right. That is David Walker, the footwear phenom, the pharaoh of foot candy, the sultan of sneakers. You can find him on Twitter at David B. Walker. And I'm Walker Mail. Catch me on WFNZ from 12 to 3. David, appreciate you, man. Thanks again.
Hey, man. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to us, making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. Make your second listen Game to Game NBA. They cover every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.